They do not fight like soldiers. They do not move like humans. To the untrained eye, a space marine appears almost mythic, towering in power armor, unerringly silent, every movement precise, every gesture calculated. Stories of their heroism are told across the Imperium, painting them as protectors of humanity, saviors on distant worlds where rebellion and chaos threaten to consume entire populations. Yet beneath that veneer of righteousness lies a darker reality, one rarely acknowledged in official reports. What if the true threat is not the rebels, the Xenos, or the heretics, but the very warriors sent to enforce order? What if the armor that inspires awe is also a machine for calculation, and the warriors inside are not men at all, but instruments of absolute authority? Our story begins with Frix Vaughn, an unassuming documentation specialist of the Administratum, tasked with auditing casualty reports after a so-called compliance operation on a distant world. The official numbers are tidy, minimal, a few dozen dead, damage contained, objectives achieved. Everything looks normal. But Frix, guided by curiosity and a sense of duty to truth, quickly discovers anomalies. Entire habblocks are missing without evidence of fire or explosions. Witnesses are silenced. Medical records are redacted. And the Vox logs, initially appearing corrupted, hide something far more disturbing, calculated edits that erase hours of audio, leaving only fragments of screams, commands, and unsettlingly calm references to civilians as units. The reality begins to emerge, not as chaos, not as accident, but as deliberate, measured terror. Space Marines are not raging monsters, nor are they simply soldiers carrying out orders. They are instruments of control, executing precision strategies designed to instill fear, shape behavior, and enforce obedience. In their presence, entire populations are no longer just living beings, they become elements in an equation, their survival dictated by calculation, their obedience ensured by terror. As Frix delves deeper into the evidence, he uncovers a truth that challenges everything the Imperium claims about its protectors. The most terrifying power in the galaxy is not the war they fight, but the certainty with which they decide life and death. The world of Tertium Majoris lay quiet beneath a pale sun, its habblocks stretching like silent monuments to routine and order. On paper, the Imperium's records described a swift compliance action, rebellion quelled, order restored, casualties minimal. But Frix Vaughn, a junior documentation specialist, had learned to trust his instincts over reports. As his ship descended through the atmosphere, he noticed subtle signs that the official story did not account for. Entire sections of the habblocks were gone, not with the explosive violence of battle, but vanished, as though carefully erased. Windows intact, walls unshattered, no fires to explain the disappearance, just emptiness, an eerie absence that left an uncomfortable silence in its wake. Frix's first steps on the planet were greeted by cautious glances from survivors, their expressions a mixture of relief and terror. He spoke to them carefully, noting discrepancies between what they whispered and what was recorded in the Administratum logs. Every account hinted at something far more chilling than a skirmish with rebels. Witnesses were silenced, medical records were missing or redacted, and even the local Vox channels showed gaps of several hours. It was as though someone had deliberately removed not only evidence of death but the memory of it itself. The atmosphere in the habblocks was thick with an unspoken fear. Citizens moved in muted patterns, avoiding open areas, eyes flicking to corners and shadows. Even the clergy, who normally walked without concern, spoke in whispers, hinting at the wardens and their judgment. Frix began to understand that this was no ordinary compliance operation. The Space Marines did not simply defeat opposition, they manipulated it. Each missing record, each silenced voice, each edited file was a piece of a carefully constructed puzzle designed not just to enforce law but to teach a lesson. As he walked the deserted streets, Frix noted the meticulous order of destruction. Not a door smashed in haste, not a wall cracked from panic, but precise, deliberate removal. The survivors' fear was almost palpable, a living layer over the ruins of the habblocks. Frix realized that the official reports were designed not to conceal chaos but to conceal method. This planet had not been defended, it had been measured. And the Space Marines who had passed through were not mere soldiers, they were the ultimate arbiters, deciding who lived and who would never be remembered. Frix's investigation led him to the local archives, a place where the ecclesiarchy kept fragments of the operations recordings. There, he found pieces of Vox logs that had been surgically edited, with entire hours removed. The first fragment he played was silent for 17 minutes, every sound absent except the faint whir of machinery and the distant hum of power armor servos. Then came the voices, metallic, distorted, yet terrifyingly calm. A Space Marine referred to the civilians as units, a term that stripped them of their humanity, reducing them to objects in an equation, variables to be managed. The remaining audio was horrific in its precision. There were screams, yes, but not random cries of panic. Each burst of terror was deliberate, almost timed, separated by calculated intervals. Frix listened, transfixed, as he pieced together the sequence. The Space Marines moved with unhurried certainty, advancing through the habblocks, pausing only to allow maximum psychological impact. They did not rush, they did not panic. There was no chaos in their actions. Every sound, every pause, every command was carefully orchestrated. Visual evidence, fragmented and partially redacted, confirmed the terror described in the audio. In one clip, Space Marines emerged from a hablock after 43 minutes, armor smeared with blood in uniform patterns, windows streaked deliberately. This was no battlefield, it was a demonstration. A lesson encoded in pain and fear, taught with methodical precision. Civilians had been offered choices, confessions about loyalty demanded, and those who complied were spared only temporarily, to witness the consequences of defiance. Frix realized that the compliance action was not about neutralizing sedition. It was about measurement. It was about instilling a fear so profound that the population would police itself, ensuring obedience long after the Marines had departed. Every fragment Frix uncovered painted a grim truth: the Space Marine were not monsters out of impulse, nor soldiers fighting for survival. They were instruments, executing the Imperium's will with calculated efficiency. Their actions were not dictated by morality or rage but by objectives. Each life taken, each survivor spared, was chosen deliberately, with an understanding of the lasting impact on the community. As Frix documented his findings, he felt a cold clarity settle over him. These warriors were not the saviors of humanity. They were the certainty of its subjugation, an unfeeling measure of life and death. Frix's next revelations exposed the chilling logic behind the compliance operation. The Space Marines had not acted out of emotion or instinct, they had executed a formula designed to ensure maximum compliance. Confession, obedience, terror, survival, each step was a lever, each life calculated to enforce a long-lasting psychological effect. Survivors were not simply released, they were strategically chosen to witness the consequences of defiance, carrying the weight of fear back into their communities. Those who had confessed were separated, some spared, others executed. The population became self-policing, a living testament to the Marines' efficiency. The precision of the violence was terrifying. Frix examined footage of the operation, noting the uniformity of blood splatter across windows, the calculated spacing of bodies, the deliberate control of space and sound. This was not combat, it was choreography. Each action was timed to leave the maximum impression. Silence was weaponized, screams were curated, and mercy itself became a tool, a psychological lever to heighten terror. Frix understood that the casualties were not incidental, they were the objective. The operation's goal was not to eliminate sedition, but to engineer fear. Even the Marines' words struck Frix. The civilians were never seen as humans, only as units whose responses could be measured, whose fates could be predicted. Their screams, their silence, their confessions, they were all data points in an experiment designed to mold behavior. In the Marines' mind, there was no malice, no cruelty beyond necessity. There was only certainty, a relentless drive to achieve objectives. Frix's horror stemmed not from the violence itself, but from its calculated inevitability. Every report he compiled, every log he cross-referenced, revealed the depth of the Imperium's machinery. The Marines were its apex, enforcers whose efficiency made conventional armies look chaotic and helpless. The compliance action was not a massacre, nor a battle, it was a demonstration of power and precision, a methodical reminder that in the Imperium, life was measured, and fear was a tool. Krix could see the structure beneath the horror, the way terror was engineered, administered, and codified, leaving no room for chance or mercy. These were not soldiers. They were arbiters, executing an unfeeling calculus of obedience. Amid the ruins of Tertium Majoris, Krix found survivors like Cetra, whose voices trembled with memories too vivid to forget. She recounted the moments before the slaughter, the deceptive calm, the choice offered by the Space Marine sergeant. Those who confessed their doubts were briefly spared, while the rest were executed with unerring precision. Cetra's testimony revealed the psychological manipulation at the heart of the operation. Fear was not a byproduct of battle, but its purpose. Every action, every pause, every life and death was intended to cultivate obedience, to teach the remaining population how to live under the shadow of inevitability. Krix documented these accounts alongside the logs and footage, struggling to reconcile the Marines' image as humanity's defenders with the horror he had uncovered. He realized the true danger of the Space Marines was not their strength, their weapons, or their armor, it was their certainty. They did not hesitate, they did not question, they did not err. Every life they ended, every soul they spared, was a calculated decision, a measured stroke in a vast, unfeeling design. Survival was no longer random, it was determined by calculation, and fear became the primary method of governance. Faced with the Ordo Hereticus demand to amend his report to match the official numbers, Krix confronted the cruel irony of the Imperium. The truth was dangerous, too potent to be acknowledged. He secretly preserved copies of the evidence, knowing that the real story could not be allowed to circulate. And yet, he understood the ultimate lesson: Space Marines were not monsters in the sense of uncontrolled brutality. They were weapons of certainty, executing the Emperor's will with precision, efficiency, and terrifying impartiality. Cetra's eyes haunted him long after he left the planet, a reminder that the consequences of a Space Marine's presence extended beyond the battlefield. Entire populations were changed, not through conquest, but through calculated fear, leaving obedience and silence as the enduring result. Krix's final reflection was chilling in its simplicity. The greatest horror of the Space Marines was not what they did in battle, but what they ensured would happen after. Life under the shadow of the Emperor's angels was not safe, it was measured, calculated, and absolute, and the line between protector and executioner had been irrevocably erased. As Krix Vaughn departed Tertium Majoris, the weight of what he had witnessed pressed on him with relentless clarity. He had seen the truth behind the myth, the reality lurking beneath the stories of heroism and valor. Space Marines were not defenders in the traditional sense, nor were they simply soldiers of extraordinary power. They were instruments, precision tools of the Imperium, calibrated to execute decisions with absolute certainty. Life and death, obedience and defiance, guilt and fear, these were not abstract concepts to them, but variables in an unfeeling equation. Where ordinary men hesitated, panicked, or faltered, the Marines moved with unshakable resolve, imposing order through terror with methodical efficiency. Krix reflected on the survivors, like Cetra, and the silent witnesses who remained behind. Their lives were shaped not by chance, not by mercy, but by the deliberate actions of beings who saw humans as data points, units to be measured, and fear as a tool to mold entire populations. The compliance action he had documented was not an anomaly, but a lesson in the Imperium's calculus. Obedience is ensured not merely through enforcement, but through psychological certainty. The Space Marines did not kill out of anger, nor did they fight out of passion. They acted with cold, deliberate intent, every movement designed to teach, to terrify, and to guarantee control long after their departure. As he compiled his final notes, Krix understood the chilling implication of his discovery. The Imperium thrives not because its armies are compassionate, nor because its defenders are heroic, but because its guardians are absolute in their purpose. In a galaxy defined by chaos, war, and heresy, certainty is the deadliest weapon, and Space Marines are its embodiment. They are a reminder that survival under the Emperor's gaze is not a matter of courage, skill, or loyalty, it is a measure of how well one conforms to the calculus of fear. And yet, there is no malice in this certainty, no sadistic delight, no improvisation. The horror is not in rage, but in inevitability. To encounter a Space Marine is not to face a monster in the traditional sense, but to confront the inexorable, the unavoidable, the ultimate decision incarnate. Crix left Tertium Majoris carrying the burden of this knowledge, aware that the truth he had uncovered could never fully be told. Official records would hide the reality, numbers would be altered, and the myth of heroism preserved. But for those who truly understand the nature of these warriors, the lesson is clear: in the presence of a Space Marine, life itself is a calculation, and certainty is the most terrifying force in the galaxy. The screen fades to black, leaving only the echo of armored footsteps, the lingering question of who survives, and the unsettling truth that in the Imperium, decisions are not made lightly, but they are made with absolute, unflinching precision.